My name is Lena Nahlus and I'm the CEO and executive producer of Diversity Arts Australia. I'm a middle-aged Arab woman. I have light olive skin, dark brown hair with some greys, and I'm currently wearing a red-coloured top and black-rimmed glasses. I'd like to start by acknowledging the First Peoples of the lands on which I am on today and on which I was born and work, the unceded lands of the Barramadigal of the Darug Nation, and pay respects to elders past and present, and recognise that sovereignty has never been ceded. I'd also like to extend that respect to all of the First Nations people who are joining us today. A little bit about us, Diversity Arts Australia, or DARTS for short. We're Australia's national organisation advocating for racial equity and greater participation for culturally and racially marginalised and ethnic minority artists and creative workers and audiences in the arts, screen and creative sectors. Our work is guided by a human rights ethic and social justice principles, and we believe that embracing a diverse range of creative expression and participation is essential for fostering a democratic, inclusive and sustainable arts and creative sector and society. So our relationship is to the Imagine Case Studies project is that we're managing it and leading it, and it's come from another project called the Creative Equity Toolkit, which we'll be sharing a short video of soon. We've been having some glitches with the videos, which is why we're a little bit late to get on today. The Creative Equity Toolkit provides resources for improving racial equity in the creative sector, and it was developed by Diversity Arts with key support from our partner British Council. And as part of the Creative Equity Toolkit resource, we realised that there needed to be more shareable and accessible stories of success. And that's what we've sought to do with the Imagine case studies. And we've now been commissioning and collaborating with researchers from across Australia. We also have a partnership with First Nations Indigenous storytelling company Garrawa, and also from around the world, just to name some: the UK, Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Jordan, Malaysia, Nigeria, Palestine, Peru, Philippines, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Tanzania, and we're now working with Canada Council as well. So please take some time to check out the other Imagine case studies. I'm really excited about today's session. We're now going to show you, and I also need to mention, of course, and acknowledge and thank that British Council Australia have been key partners in Creative Equity Toolkit and Imagine case studies, as have Creative Australia and Create New South Wales. So I wanted to introduce our fantastic host. Wanika Mashila describes herself as an Afro creative who drives social impact. Over the years, that has taken different forms of expression, such as theatre, dance, choreography, fashion, and costume design, styling and curating cultural experiences. These practices have been fundamental to her understanding barriers to participation for artists and audiences from marginalised communities, enabling her to build significant networks in the arts, cultural sectors across Western Sydney. Wanika has worked on audience and community engagement for Sydney Opera, Riverside Theatres, Griffin Theatre, Belvoir Street, Darlinghurst Theatre, La Boite, Malthouse, Old Fitz Theatre, and done public programming for Art Gallery of New South Wales, Sydney Opera House, Open Inner West, Starts and MAV. And she's also co-designed, curated and produced workshops for young women of colour, and during COVID hosted an Instagram live series called Conversation, which put a spotlight on incredible women of colour who are trailblazers in their field. So basically, Wanika doesn't sleep and she's amazing. So over to you. Thank you so much for hosting this session today.
Thanks for having me, Lena. Welcome everyone. And before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are meeting on. And for me, that's Darawal. And I pay my respects to elders past and present, and acknowledge that this is, always was, and always will be Aboriginal land. And since this is an online session, I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the various lands in which you're all based, whether you're here in Australia or overseas. So once again, thank you for attending today's second Imagine talk. transforming communities, a topic that I'm really passionate about. As Lena said, my name is Wanika, and for audio description, I describe myself as a woman of African descent with warm chocolate fudge skin, what I'm going to call it. I have long hair extensions and tied up in a bun, and I'm wearing red rim glasses. So to get us started, today we have three speakers from Ethiopia, Egypt, and Australia, and dare I say by way of Mauritius. Where we'll be discussing the work of their organizations and initiatives that use various art forms such as dance, theater, film, storytelling, and music to empower marginalized communities, promote social change, challenge stereotypes, and advocate for human rights. These themes highlight the power of arts to empower individuals and communities, preserve cultural heritage, and create inclusive and accessible spaces. Through these diverse initiatives and organizations, the arts play a vital role in promoting social change, fostering understanding, and giving a voice to underrepresented groups. We hope today's session will be informative for all of you. And the main way you can contribute to today's conversation is you can ask questions using using the chat function. You can enter questions throughout the sessions, but we'll only respond to this at the end, and we'll try and answer as many questions where possible at the end of the conversation. This session is also being recorded and will be shared through Diversity Arts Australia website. And now I'd like to introduce and thank our Auslan interpreters, Yasmin Dandachi and Dima El Alam, who will be providing Auslan support. You can turn on live captions in the Zoom window by toggling on and off the CC button at the bottom of your screen. And you can also change the size of the text in the subtitle settings or pop-out window to view the full script. If you fall off and you can't get back in this, the Zoom link is in the email you received when you registered. And finally, today's session will run for about 90 minutes. And we want this to be a useful and positive session. So we hope that everyone participating agrees to the following values and will guide the discussions. And these are respectful, professional, and genuine engagement, deep listening, openness, non-judgment, and safety. And if at any time during the conversation you're finding the discussions difficult or stressful, you're very welcome to take a break and come back. Now, I'd like to ask you to please turn your cameras and microphones off until question time, which will be towards the end of the session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Azza, who will speak for the Blind Women's Orchestra, the Al-Nour Wal Amal Institute in Egypt. The Institute challenges stereotypes and empowers blind women through their orchestra, providing music education and professional opportunities, and serving as role models and promoting gender equity and disability inclusions in the country. Unfortunately, today, Nagat Raudan, the executive director of the orchestra, will not be able to speak as she's unwell, but we have the wonderful Azza, an Egyptian journalist and podcast producer with 9 years of experience in the news industry, speaking instead. Azza earned her MA in digital journalism from the Goldsmith University in London. And Azza, I'll turn the spotlight on to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. I want to also say that the executive director of the orchestra, Nagat Radwan, couldn't attend today because she is sick, and she says she's really sorry, but she managed to send me some answers that I will share with you later in the session. But I will speak briefly about the orchestra, which is famous in Cairo, and I spent 2 days with them to write the article. The orchestra consisted from 120 musicians. All the participants in the orchestra are blind females from different ages, and they have the orchestra have been established in Cairo from, I think, 60 years old, and they have been playing music for 60 years now. And what was really when I visited them, they were rehearsing all the time, but I managed to meet the executive director and the head of the orchestra, and they told me how they um, how they really keep their work going and how they expand their work. As you mentioned, they are really challenging stereotypes in Egypt and offering a place for females with disabilities to play music and I mean stay to present their music in many concerts inside the country and outside. um, when I met Nagat, she told me that they have played in 33 countries, and they have been received with a lot of appreciation and yeah and sometimes they have been that the audience give them gifts for the for the amazing music they were playing. Also, she told me that the orchestra is like a big family, and the members of orchestra build the networks and connections together, and told me that also they advance to have to integrate women with disabilities into the society. They kind of continue their work through the revenues from the concerts, but also have some support from community-based organizations inside Egypt. They help them from time to time, but they also they take from the society and they also give to the society through some concert to fundraise money for other charities. For instance, she told me that they have been, I think, weeks ago in a concert to raise money for a hospital that treats breast cancer in Cairo, and the whole money of the concert was given to the hospital. So they kind of take from the society and also give back to the society. The orchestra is known in Cairo, is known also internationally. They receive invitation from time to time to perform in many countries. And as far as I learned, that they are the only orchestra in the world that is from blind women. As far as I saw online as well, I'm not sure if there are other orchestras, but she told me that when they played in Japan a few years ago, they tried in Japan to have an orchestra like the one in Cairo, to organize an orchestra from blind women. I'm not sure if they managed to do that, but that's one of the impacts of what they have done, or what they have really the work they have done, the impact of the work they have done. When I have written about them 2 years ago when I visited them. I remember at the time they were struggling with how they can continue their work due to COVID, and they couldn't organize concerts, but now they are in a better place now. They have been playing music the whole year. Also, it's just inspiring for me as a journalist. Like, I really can't speak for them, but for me as a journalist, when I visited them, I felt so inspired. They work all the time, they rehearse all the time, and it was for me really inspiring to see them play their music by heart. They just first they study through the braille notes, but then they play by heart. They play their music without notes, and they perform. They rehearse a lot of hours to memorize how they can perform, and then in the concert they just perform without notes. So this was really inspiring. I have also been told by the executive director that they are so patient and have a lot of perseverance to really practice a lot and perform well. I know that yeah, I'm trying to remember everything that she told me to tell you
And
about the
that's fine,
orchestra.
Azza. Yeah. And what we'll do, we've got a Q&A after, and I think some of those points that might jog your memory a bit later. And thank you very much for that. It's really fantastic to hear the amazing work that's being done and the broad reach that the orchestra has.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dereje, the co-founder and artistic director of Fekat Circus in Ethiopia. Fekat Circus provides circus training to young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, offering them opportunities for personal and professional growth. Dereje directed the first and second edition of the African Circus Arts Festival, involving over 200 African circus performers. He also launched and settled the first circus tent in the Horn of Africa. He has directed and overseen over 500 circus performances in Ethiopia and abroad. Fekat, over to you.
Thank you for having me. My name is Dereje, and I am one of the founders of Fekat Circus, as you just explained. And Fekat Circus runs many different programs throughout Ethiopia and also in Africa. And Fekat Circus means it's a blossoming circus. We have many different activities in Ethiopia, like we work in the hospital. We have an open space for everyone can join and come to use the space. Actually, in Addis Ababa, there is not much more spaces open like in Fekat. So the idea was to give opportunity for everyone who want to spend some time with the youth and do some creative activities together. So we don't expect, I mean, since we are circus school and we can teach circus, but we don't expect everyone to be a circus artist. So they can come and make a friendship, stay there, or speak about different activities, creative painting, whatever they we like to do together. We give this opportunity for them. And with the idea of creating a space for our community circus school from the children around the area, they can practice the circus, but it's all for free, since for us circus is I mean, the area where we are staying in Addis, it's a little bit poor area, so they cannot afford. So we managed to find a solution to continue this project. So we have different activities throughout. We give private lessons for the people who can afford to pay. With the idea, they pay also for the people who can't. So we have these activities 5 days a week for the community circus school, that they can come for free and spend all their time at Fekat after school program, and 3 classes for the private lessons. Our challenge was like at the beginning, circus for our community was kind of sport. It's kind of play. You know, it's not really an art form. So that was challenging at the beginning. So we thought about how to change this and show also for our community in Ethiopia in general to change this mentality from it's not just a place where you can just play, and also you can do some artistic things, and you can overcome also, you can get a work, you can live with it. So we organized the African Circus Festival, inviting 6 African countries from different parts of Africa, and that was a nice input. So we organized throughout the festival, 12,000 people came, and we did a lot of shows around the city in Addis to show that we are not the only one who is trying to do something. There are also in another country. So that was a nice impact that in Addis now we have our monthly program shows every month, and we don't even need to promote it at the moment because everyone knows about it and they have interest, and it becoming like accepted as an art form. And beside that, we have another project that we do in the hospital. We work as the Smile Medicine project. This Smile Medicine project that our trainees they go in the hospital and spend some time with the patients, with the kids, and with the families. That's all, and I'm happy to answer any questions. If you want to know more about Fekat Circus, you can visit fekatcircus.com on our website. You will get all information that I didn't say.
Thank you very much, Dereje. And you see, you got to your time. The passion comes out once you start speaking. It's all there. It's all there. Thank you so much for that. And finally, I'd like to introduce our final speaker, Yasmin Guergues, who's the CEO and Artistic Director of ActNow Theatre in Australia. Yasmin has worked in the cultural sector, both nationally and internationally, for the last 2 decades, and is a theatre director, facilitator, and creative producer. Yasmin is also the co-executive director of Rumpus. Over to you, Yasmin.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Azza. Thanks, Dereje. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name's Yasmin Guergues, and I'm the CEO and Artistic Director of ActNow Theatre. I'm a migrant to Australia, and I use she/they pronouns. So ActNow, where I work, is based in Adelaide, South Australia, and I would like to acknowledge the Kaurna people, the Kaurna Myuna, as the traditional custodians of this land, Kaurna Yerta. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge the continuous sharing of wisdom and culture and storytelling, generations and generation passed on and on through millennia. I'm going to ask Aisha, I hope it's Aisha, just to share with you a short video. It's a snapshot of the work that we do at ActNow.
Here at ActNow, we create socially conscious theatre. We work with underrepresented communities to uplift the stories that are often forgotten or ignored. Our work aims to make a real difference on our communities and the issues that they face.
Thanks, Aisha. So ActNow Theatre is a for-purpose, community-driven social justice arts organisation with an award-winning programme of theatre works, community engagement projects and artist development programs. And we're a leading community arts and cultural development organisation in South Australia. And we champion historically marginalised communities, so First Nations, POC, queer communities and disabled communities. And our vision is the democratisation and decolonisation of storytelling. And I'm always kind of thinking about that phrase and what that actually means. And that's been important to us. So the democratisation of storytelling has been with us from the beginning. So over 15 years, we've been working tirelessly to that aim. And more recently, really thinking about what does it mean to decolonise an organisation, a space, a work, a place. And I don't have the answers, but I like to continually think about it and sort of moving away from using the West as a benchmark to how we do things. The work we do at ActNow is kind of multi-pronged approach. So we have a repertoire of work that focuses on the issues that our communities are facing. So what is hurting our communities? So we have work that looks at anti-racism or racism. We have work that looks at homophobia, work that looks at Islamophobia. We're currently developing a new work that is looking at domestic violence. And we try and really we try and make work that's preventative. So starting right at the beginning. So working with young people, and most of our work is generally not open to the public. It's in private settings, so community settings, such as schools, workplaces, healthcare settings. That's kind of mainly where we do all our work. And we also, so we have the rep of work, we also have a lot of artist development programs. So we have free pathway programs, which are for people to engage in the arts for the first time. We try and demystify what it is to be in the arts. We give people access to lots of industry people in the arts and tools. So it's a lot of skills development that goes on, and all of these programs are free that we run. We also do residencies where artists from our communities and even grassroots, so people who haven't done very much at all within the arts, we offer them opportunities to have a go at expressing or developing an idea that they're passionate about. We also do cultural leadership programs, and we pay people to take part in the cultural leadership program. That's really important about making it accessible, because it's one thing to have these programs, but actually a lot of the time people are giving up work in order to be able to partake in these programs. And a lot of the time that can make it inaccessible for people. And so we also do free ongoing monthly community workshops, which is a skills development program. And we kind of see everything's all connected. So there's stepping stones. So you might come and meet with ActNow in a first engagement in a pathway program or a community workshop. And then you might end up acting for us in the repertoire of work that we do. And then you might end up doing a residency. And then you might end up being an associate artist with us as well. So we're always kind of thinking about how do we stay connected with people, and consultation is at the heart of everything that we do. So what that looks like is that we're constantly running forums, and we're asking questions with regards to what our community wants, and then we're responsive. So our program is in response to what the community needs are. And I'm constantly always thinking about when a community member comes up to me and has an idea or has something they want to explore, just thinking about future, how can I actually support them? What can I put in place to support that artist or that community member? We're really human focused, and I'm quite heart-centered. I'm a kind of a heart-centered leader in the way that I do things. I care about the people we work with. And I think it's impossible for me not to look at how do I amplify marginalized people's voices, and that's my own experience, my lived experience, and I'm passionate about wanting to change things, and I do it unapologetically. So I am very happy to place marginalized communities up front and center, and I am always thinking about what are the different opportunities. And now in Australia, things have shifted a little bit, and it's a lot more common, and there's a lot more opportunities for our marginalized communities. But ActNow has been doing this work for almost 2 decades, so very, very much ahead of its game with regards to the rest of the community. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. I've just seen Anika come up, so I'm gonna go, great, thanks Anika.
No worries. Thank you so much. As always, so great listening to what you have to say, as with all the other speakers today. And I can't wait to get into the Q&A. And I am aware of the time that we have, so we might not get through all the questions. So I'll just try and throw questions at each one of you at different points. But what I would like to say, just to summarize from reading your case studies and what you had to say, 5 things really stood out across the work that the 3 of you are involved in. And one was providing professional opportunities. A second was role models of representation, increasing participation in your communities. And it's about the voices in the room, and doesn't this sound a bit familiar from your case study, and doing the groundwork in community. So I felt like that was a common thread that I picked from the 3 of you. So what I would like to do now is I'd throw this question to you, Azza, and how does your work challenge traditional power dynamics and ensure that the participants have control? Maybe, well, as I sorting that out, I might throw that to you, Yasmin.
Well, I'm always, so with regards to the voices in the room, who gets to speak first, I'm constantly trying to shift the paradigms that are in place. And that a lot of the time that in the past, historically, I've actually been on my own doing it as well. And there's kind of a bravery around it of actually kind of standing up to, for example, when a show has been cast and it's all white folk, that, and kind of actually speaking to it and actually being brave enough to actually speak to the people who are casting or whatever it is, or kind of the directors. So the question was about the challenging the power dynamics. One is, unapologetically, unashamedly giving opportunities to people who don't normally get the opportunities, and being absolutely like, no, sorry, it's not for you. You've got opportunities elsewhere. You have a voice all the time, but really, and being really methodical in our approach to it. So at ActNow, you know, the staff are very aware, even in regards to how we talk about people, how we place people, when we hold spaces, when we facilitate, who gets to speak first. We're constantly doing that all the time. So actually at ActNow, all the decision making, everything is always ensuring that the people who are making the decisions are people from the marginalised communities. So it's that's how it's kind of disrupting it. It's by not creating any space for people who normally do have the power. So I'm very lucky that I can get to do that in the organisation that I work for, because I know that's not always the case for a lot of organisations, but I just do it. It's like you have to do it.
Yeah. Dereje, would you like to add anything on to that?
Actually, the most important part we did, like traditionally challenge, it's to build a trust among the community. So in our communities, like at the beginning, it was a bit challenging for them to send also the kids to our space, and but slowly, like when they see what the kids and they start to perform to their families like this, they start to trust. So the most important thing is to build a trust on that.
Are you able to share with us some key takeaways from your work regarding the importance of supporting people from marginalized backgrounds?
Sure. I will share about the orchestra because I have written about them, but also I chatted with the executive director yesterday over the phone and asked her some extra question. The question is supporting people from marginalized group. The key takeaway is that it's important to continue the work to continue doing the work with even at the beginning with the few resources, but then they can really expand their work. With the time. At the beginning of the orchestra, I have written about there was a school for blind boys, but there was no school for blind girls in Egypt. So they decided to start the school, and then they started an institute for musicians for blind female, and it's that at the beginning they didn't have a lot of resources to start their work, but they kept working with donations and stuff, and now they are a famous orchestra in Egypt. So what I have learned is that it's important to if you believe in something, to keep doing it, and with time I think you are going to change perspective, and you are going to really go ahead. And they started the orchestra 60 years ago. At the time, the Egyptian society was so conservative, but now I think they are now well known. And so the key takeaway is the key points here is just continue doing the work and to grade people from marginalized communities into creative arts, and with time with time they are going to change a lot of perspective, and they are going to change stereotypes. So that's what I would say here.
Yeah, fantastic. It's that theory of start where you are and do what you can, and everything grows from there, and you get learnings and you keep growing. One last question before we move to the broader impact and sustainability questions that we have for you. And what I wanted to know from the three of you, have there been any unexpected outcomes or particularly heartwarming moments in your work? And I will start with you, Dereje, then we'll go to Yasmin, and then Azza.
Actually, when we organized the African Circus Festival, our expectation was a bit low, but we just want to share that there are other people like us trying to do their art and to live with this. So after we invited all the African artists from different parts of, and it went really well. So for us, it was a big impact in our community in Ethiopia in general that helped us to understand and to accept us that it's an art form and that we can live with it. So that was the beautiful moment for us, that people start to pay for our show.
And over to you, Yasmin.
Sorry, there's been a few. So it's so heartwarming when you see a community member who's come through the door, and there's one in particular, like, came through the door really, really scared and never done any kind of artwork before at all. They were originally from Kenya, a migrant to Australia, shy in the corner, and then kind of working with them. And then over the weeks, seeing them kind of come out of their shell and get more and more involved. And then like doing their first ever performance, and then being involved in lots of shows, and then kind of getting more and more connected to ActNow and becoming a board member as well, and then becoming the chair of the board. So kind of that stuff, seeing that journey is really beautiful. I love it. I love mapping the journey of all the different community members and the artists that work with us, and seeing an artist member, you know, start with us and then being in state theatre shows or working for other professional organisations in the state and interstate, seeing artists collaborate, community members make connections and then make new work all together because they found their people. So wonderful. And one of my favourite works that we make, so that we actually have as part of our rep, is called Like Me, Like You. So it's a primary school show for about anti-racism. It's for 5 to 8 year olds. And I love it. So whenever I'm feeling sad about the world and, you know, getting very disillusioned again and a bit hopeless with regards to the state of affairs across the world and the racism and the horrific atrocities, I try and go and see that show. And then I'm reminded about how wonderful our children are, and how wonderful, and they know, they can see the inequity, they can see how things aren't fair. And so that, I just wanted to mention that because it just reminds me how good our young people are, and it makes me feel hopeful again. So that really is wonderful seeing that.
Fantastic. And I was just going to throw in a shy Kenyan, unheard of. Just kidding. Over to you, Azza.
So the executive director told me that when they played their music in many concerts, families and parents would come to them after the concert, if they have children with disabilities, and tell them how they can help them play music, or how they can help them explore their talents and do other creative stuff. So the executive director told me that literally in every concert they played in Cairo, they met families who would come and ask them how they can help their children with disabilities really do creative art with their music or writing. So she told me she can feel the change they were making in every concert, and people were clapping for them sometimes for 20 minutes after the concert because of the performance they have made. So she told me that they can feel the impact of their music everywhere they go, and many of the families who attended their concert later, their children joined the orchestra, and they are learning now and rehearsing orchestra. So that's one of the things, or the one of the outcomes that came from their concert. Yeah, that's what I have written.
So then maybe I'll move to the second part of our questions, and that's around the broader impact and sustainability. And you have touched on some of these. So I'd probably start with Dereje on this one. Can you elaborate how you attract audiences?
Actually, it was not so complicated to attract audience, since we are in the center of Addis, and we just have to put the music and everyone was already there. The challenge was to keep them there, like to make them understand, and so that was not really. We had always the people, the community, like the kids, were coming, and in somehow after that the trainees start to play a show around, and other more peoples are start to arrive and trust in the process. So we didn't have really any problem to, because there are not much activities in Addis, that open space that give you a chance to spend time and to have this kind of activities. So it was not really a challenge. The challenge was to find a job after work. For our trainees, they learn a lot and they become professional with their works, but that was our challenge, was to find work.
And how have you combated that challenge of finding work for your trainees?
So we start to create different activities, like we start to work with the schools, outreach programs, with the birthday parties for our trainees. So we have to find work so they are sustainable and they don't have to do other things, so they can continue their art work. So we formed different activities for them. So now they are teaching in an international circuit, in the international schools, in different schools. We perform different parts of whenever there are any events that now we are like since 20 we are exist 20 years almost, so we are well known. So when there are many different parties or any meeting, we are invited. So, and plus we have our private circus school that we send also teacher to different parts of the city that they go to teach in different places. Plus we have we settle our circus tents outside of Addis, where we play a show 2 times a week, so people come and see our shows. So we are trying to create different activities to find a job for our trainees.
Thank you so much for that. Very interesting. And maybe I'll ask you, Azza, the same. How do you attract audiences for the orchestra?
So the executive director told me that they attract audiences actually through a word of mouth. Like when they play concerts, everyone who attends their concerts start to share with others about the concert and about how they are great performers. So people would attend other concerts, and also they do a lot of outreach on social media too. And for instance, they play music in big institutions in Egypt, for in the opera in Cairo. So the opera do a lot of advertising and to really to sell the tickets and also attract the audiences. So they usually play in big places in Egypt, and those places do participate in the outreach and stuff, and in promoting the concert, and people join. That's also one of the things she told me. And she told me that the president of the orchestra has a lot of networks with ambassadors in Egypt, for instance. So she organized international concerts through these embassies. So also networking and building connections with different institutions, and those institutions do help in promoting their work or the performance, promoting the concerts of the orchestra, or doing some advertising for them and outreach. So yeah, it's more of a partnership with other organizations, embassies, and institutions. So yeah, she told me that these connections do really help in in attracting audiences from different backgrounds and inside Egypt and outside Egypt.
Great, thank you. And Yasmin, I'll ask you the same,
Thank
because
you.
attracting audiences is a very hot topic amongst cultural organizations and art spaces. What would you say has worked for you?
Just with what Dereje said as well, like with regards to just outreach, the importance of outreach work. And it's tricky, isn't it? Kind of, especially the work that ActNow does, the expectation that people should come to us as well, instead of going to them. And we found that whenever we've done a series of outreach activities prior to a program, then the uptake's been great, like really, really strong. And occasionally when we haven't had the capacity to do that, we've noticed that impact the numbers. And like, as I said, a big part as well is word of mouth, you know, with regards to getting key people in communities, key people who are kind of movers and shakers, getting them as ambassadors is really important. And that was our thinking behind the Cultural Leaders program as well, was about having ambassadors for ActNow who can do that work, because a big part of, you know, going into communities is having people that the communities trust, that will then come and work with us. With regards to our rep works, so a lot of that is about partnerships, ensuring that we're building really good partnerships, strong partnerships. And a lot of the work we make, we ensure that we're actually having industry specialists who are partners with us. So for example, the current work that we're developing that's looking at domestic violence and preventative measures in primary schools. And we have like the White Ribbon Foundation, we have the Zahra Foundation. So we're ensuring that we have the experts alongside us. So yeah, partnerships, and yeah, the outreach, I'd say, is really important. And like, we're very different. Like we do, but not very often do we present in a large theatre and expect to attract audiences that way. We do it in a very, like I said, it's closed settings, the way that we work. And so the outreach element, the word of mouth and that partnerships are vital to our sustainability in the work that we do.
And how do you sustain those audiences, Yasmin, once you've done the outreach and they've come in and they've interacted with you and they're engaged?
Well, sometimes we don't, actually. Sometimes, you know, it's not possible. And that's okay too. Like, it's not, it really is, there's got to be an element, especially with the programs that we run, of that the people have to be they have to commit to us. We commit to them and they have to kind of commit to us. And there's also, you know, with regards to partners, there's times when the partnership no longer makes sense. You know, for a very long time, we had a really strong partnership with Reconciliation SA, and then our kind of visions and our thinkings were kind of different. And so it didn't make sense anymore. So it's kind of honoring that too is really important. So yeah, I don't have the answer. But yeah, I don't have the answer really. Like on it, yeah.
And I think there in itself, like,
I would add something on that, like
oh yeah, absolutely,
on how to attracting the audience at the beginning. When we start to do our monthly show, at the beginning we were trying to show them what we can do. With the time, the numbers start to be less and less, so we realized that we have to change this. So we try to create a space that it's not just what we do. We let them be there, spend their time, create a safe space. Like, also not only between us and them, like the public, but it's also among themselves, between publics, that we create a connection, that they create a connection. So we change this. There will be the show, yes, also the children, their children from this. But the thing is, after all these programs, we let them stay there to create a space, like with the nice atmosphere. We create a nice atmosphere, so they start to spend more time there. That was the change. Like, if you create a space after the shows, and if you give them an opportunity to meet other people, so then they start to invite out. So it can be a place that we can meet there. You know, it's instead of like they can go another place or in a cafe, something like this. We can meet there. We can see the show, but we have a nice space that we can sit and talk. So we changed this, and it was really impacting much the audience. So it becomes like we can meet there.
Yeah, so that sounds like you are directly responding to the community and the audience's need, as opposed to putting yourself first. Like, what do they need? Can you provide that space? And then from there, you
Exactly.
foster that ongoing. Yeah,
Exactly.
amazing. Thank you. And Yasmin, I just wanted to go back to your point and say therein lies the answer as well. Sometimes it's okay not to proceed with something if it's at the detriment of an audience or a community that you're trying to work with. And because there's a really amazing saying that I had, that everything moves at the speed of trust. So the more trust you build around your audiences and your community, the more you can build work. And sometimes things fall apart to come together, you know, giving everyone that space to breathe. So I think that in itself is that part of just listening and learning from your audiences and your communities. The invite, if you wanted to add something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a brief thing, because the executive director told me they try to have a concert every month, and she told me having a concert every month, for example, audience when they attend the concert, they encourage their friends or other people to attend other concerts. So they try to have this consistency, to play music every month in a concert.
It sounds like she was speaking to consistency, having concerts every month, and creating that consistency with your audience and community is also really important, again, in fostering those long-term relationships as well. Yasmin, Dereje, how do you think initiatives like this contribute to broader societal goals of inclusion, diversity, and empowerment through the arts?
The most important thing is by organizing sharing. I can tell you a couple of stories, like what happened after our African Circus Festival. Like we invited
this helped them
that
keep active.
who is trying to live in their country by their art form, like by doing what they are doing. So like this project in Senegal, they came, we invite them. So they have been trying to do same kind of programs. So they started like after they come in Ethiopia, they see the different activities like making outreach programs, creating schools, private schools. That was we get, and they are working well at the moment, and they get this information by exchanging. And like for us, by going to Kenya, we get this. We saw this the hospital project, and we say, "Wow, this is beautiful." So we have to bring it back to Ethiopia, and we start the hospital, the Smile Medicine project in the hospital. So for me, the most important thing is to organize different exchange programs and speak about what is your challenge, what is my challenge, like to overcome, and to support also each other, like in somehow you are not alone trying to do this kind of art forms in different parts of the world.
Yeah, I love that, what you just said then about the idea of like kind of seeing all the fantastic work that is taking place everywhere else, and the idea of not being alone, because it can be very isolating and lonely doing this work. And so that's kind of what's really great about the toolkit and the initiative. And just kind of, it can be really daunting, like working with marginalised communities for other organisations or whatever it is, and kind of seeing examples is super useful in kind of the ideas of practice and potentially instigating change. It's interesting, kind of one of the questions was around impact and actually what that looks like and how it's measured, and kind of, yeah, interested to know with regards to this, how do you measure the impact of the toolkit? How do you measure it? And just I think the importance of there needs to be a lot more longitudinal kind of studies around this and thinking about what impacts it does have. But for me personally, like I said, it's lovely kind of seeing all these other artists and organizations and their practice and what they're doing and the impact they have. It's pretty wonderful.
The last question was, I wanted to know what your future plans and goals were.
And they are planning to expand their work to other cities in Egypt, because they are only based in Cairo, and most of the orchestra musicians are from Cairo. So they want to open another like branch of the building or the institute in another cities. They are still studying this, but yeah, they want to have other musicians from other cities. And
Dereje?
Actually, what we want to do in the future is to be able to bring our art forms for the people who doesn't have the chance to see. So this is really what we want to do, like bring the art for the people who doesn't have the chance to have it, and also try to help, since we pass throughout a lot of difficulties, and if anyone want to start a kind of project and different activities like we are very happy to support, and we are doing that as well. So, but the most important thing is to bring the art form around for the people who doesn't have the chance to have it.
Yes.
So for the organisation, we're super lucky that we get multi-year funding from Creative Australia, and also our local government. So Art South Australia, we're on multi-year funding. But a core thing is about looking at how do we diversify our income streams, and particularly in the philanthropic space, so that we can be sustainable. And that's something that we're kind of investing a lot of our time and energy in thinking about that, because we've not really sort of gone down that path significantly in the past, and now we need to, especially for the sustainability of the organisation. So a goal really is to look at, because the work we do, absolutely, it should be totally attractive to philanthropic support. So my hope and goal is that we can actually really diversify our income streams. That's a core thing. And then me personally is that I'm spend so much of my time amplifying other people's voices. And with regards to artistic practice, it's actually thinking about what's the art that I want to make, and how can I role model that for the community that I serve, so that they can actually see people in positions as CEO, artistic directors, who are making work that is, their expression. And I think that's really important. And I've had to be reminded of that, actually. It's not something that I come up, think about myself. People remind me about that, the importance that I also make work, So that's a personal goal, and it will kind of also be part of ActNow's future, is actually making work that is my story. So that's quite exciting.
Thank you for sharing that. And Yasmin, you've just touched on a question that has been asked, which is how important is government funding and philanthropic support to your program? So maybe I'll throw to Dereje with that.
Actually, it has been always challenging to get funding. I mean, we have been lucky, but we realize also that we have to be able to support our project by our own way, because when many of the projects stopped because of the funding, like they start the funding and then the continuation of the funding. So what we are trying to do really, like, also because when you ask a lot of funding, instead of doing your art, you work all the time the paperwork, because you have to. So this was really a big challenge. So we are trying to create our own sustainability by doing different activities in the place where we are. So we created this system that we put our tent outside of Addis, which is 42 kilometers from the town, where people go to have a holiday. So this is a kind of holiday space. Our artists, they go to play their shows 2 times a week, but also in somehow this is sustainable, that people always go there, so they are paying for our activities, and we can do what we like to do also, because this is something like we really like to create this space for everyone that can come and express themselves. So at the moment we are trying to really not do the minimum, but at least we are doing it by our own, because we have been supported by the European Union, by the UNESCO, but that was really challenging, because you have to just work paperwork that becomes like this. And our mostly challenging part in Addis, it's the house rent. We still pay house rent, and the government, actually the government doesn't have the money, so we don't even ask. So we are paying also our house rent in the city. And this is challenging because of, Addis, it's the capital city of Africa. So with all the organization around, the house rent is really high, that which is affecting us. This is the only challenge that for us, we have to pay the rent and the rent and the rent. This is our only challenge. Like for the works, for our trainees, we managed to find a work for them everywhere, like a different part of school. We created this, so we don't ask any salary for any organization. We managed because during COVID, when all the projects was freeze, that is where we realized, like, you have to do something in your place that keep you going, because all the funds were cut off. So we were a little bit, and so we are trying to do projects that sustain in the place. And I am personally telling every people or any organization that I meet, that I'm explaining that, instead of looking for fund, you have to try to find a way how to sustain your project.
Yeah. And Dereje, when you speak of rent, we hear you. In Australia, in Sydney, it's our shared pain point. Yeah.
And somehow also I would like, we cannot, there can be a possibility to get a land from the government. But as an art form, we are in the middle. We cannot be we can't take any position. Like if you go to ask for the government, and if they give you, what they will ask in return, okay, when they have some meeting, when they have to do parade like this, we have to do these things. And in this way, and also we create a gap with our community, with the people. So we don't want to be involved, even if we know that there is a possibility to find this way, but we can't. As an artist, we have to keep our distance from being, because we are always, I believe we are like a kind of bridge. So we try to be out and think about okay, this is what we like to do. If not, it become a little bit complicated also, or you lose one part or you lose one part. So this is also a tricky point.
And I was going to say, being an African and from Kenya myself, it's understanding those tensions between the role of government in arts and culture spaces and the voice they have, and how your hands can get tied. And so it's very, it is understandable. Like you want to get something out of them, but then again, very much aware of what that would mean for the type of work that you're doing for the community. Okay, while we saw that out, as we are now onto some of the questions that you have put onto the chat, Jessica, if you're still around, would you want to turn on your camera and pose your question to the panel?
My question was just about measuring impact. Like, obviously, this is a way that you measure impact, by sharing your stories through these case studies and through this webinar. But how do you like to measure the impact of your organization's work, especially when you're doing reporting for funding or reporting to community? Do you like to talk about the numbers of how many people you've reached, or do you prefer to focus on those individual case studies? What do you find is most effective in terms of reaching people and making everyone, stakeholders, aware of the kind of work you do and the impact and the change that you're having on community?
I can go. I don't think we do enough with regards to measuring, and it's really difficult to articulate exactly the impact. Personally, we have, we record everything and we evaluate, and we have all these surveys and we do all this kind of stuff. So we have a lot of qualitative and quantitative data. With the actual strat plan, it's very qualitative. So we have ticks rather than kind of numbers and KPIs. We have much more ticks than numbers. But I actually feel like, for me personally, like when I'm viewing it, the impact on individuals feels so much, it feels way more important because it's really tangible. Being able to see the differences, the journey, that feels way more tangible. Because I don't know, with the work that we do, how can you show that just by numbers? Just by numbers engaging, because it has to be more than just numbers. There has to be a process beyond that, beyond just numbers, whether that be, I don't know what it is, like conversations, interview, all the things, I don't know, but it feels, yeah, I feel like I'm swayed way more to the personal impact and kind of measuring that, individual focuses. And that, you know, this case study does that, those individual organizations and the impact, rather than the kind of the numbers. Numbers don't necessarily mean anything, hey? They don't tell a story necessarily. Sometimes they do. And I'm sure there's lots of statisticians out there who'd be like, they do tell a story. But for me, they don't. But yeah, anyway, that's my thinking, my thoughts.
I mean, the measuring impact for us, it's like by seeing how many of our trainees people pass by and find their way to create and to find. This is how we measure actually how many people, because for us, like, this project is a passage. You know, we don't want to. So the measure is like how many people. Okay, 30 people went find their way through this by using this bridge to find their own future. So this is, yes, number counts in somehow, but this is how we measure really the impact.
Thank you. And Azza?
I haven't, of course, asked the executive director this question, but I remember from the interview I did with her almost 2 years ago that she was mentioning that they do monitoring and evaluation every year for their work in CERT and all of that stuff. But I'm not sure about the results of these monitoring and evaluation programs. So, but they do.
I mean, I have not much to say about funding because since I have been, I'm like, as I said before, the only challenge that we have is, and also in the country that the political situation always it's on and off. There are no much funding that coming in the country, so we don't have really much hope on that. So we focus more on how to survive in our own way. So this is, I have not much to say. I mean, we are always trying to get fund for the house rent, which is the biggest expense that we have. So, and we have found, but we don't know how much time that we will be supported. So it's a bit complicated to answer for me.
Yeah, it makes it difficult. Yeah. Any last thoughts? Anything, Yasmin, that you'd like to share with us that we didn't get a chance to cover today, but you'd like to leave us with today?
You're not really, just say thank you. Thanks for showing up and, listening to the conversations, and thanks to the two other speakers, to Dereje and Azza, and also just to acknowledge, that I'm very privileged I get to speak in my mother tongue, and just thank you both for, speaking in your non-mother tongues. That is an assumption. I don't want to make assumptions, but I just want to thank you. I always find it quite inspiring when people are not, they're presenting in not their mother tongue. So thank you. I just want to say thank you. And thank you to Diversity Arts for hosting. That's all I want to say, really. So big thank you to all. That's what I've got to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any last words, Dereje?
Thank you for inviting me, and it has been interesting. Like, I mean, getting always information from different parts of the world. It's always gives you more that you are not alone. So thank you for everyone to invite me, and hope we will find a way to meet in different parts of the world, or anyone want to come in Ethiopia is welcome to visit our projects and make an exchange. And thank you for everyone.
Thank you, Dereje. Looks like we've lost Azza But what I will say before I give over to Lena is thank you, Diversity Arts, and thank you to our panelists for sharing in this space. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to read your case studies, to get to learn a little bit more about your organizations. And for anyone who hasn't had a chance to get through the case studies, they are fantastic. They just bring that message which each of our panelists has sort of touched on. It's the coming together and feeling that you're not alone in this work, and that exchange of knowledge and information is really fantastic. And just the little things that you pick up and get to do and just run with it can be the thing that transforms your project from feeling stuck to, just, excelling in the work that you do. So thank you everybody. And I will pass over to Lena to close the session for us today.
Oh, thank you. I was just putting in the chat. Thank you so much to all of you for your for sharing the work that you do and how you do it and the strategy and the importance of building trust with community, Dereje, which I thought is critical in all of our work, and the politics that we're always dealing with in terms of who we take money from, what it means. There was so much in there. It was very rich, and I'm going to think about it for quite a while. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Juanica, for hosting such a great conversation. And I did forget at the beginning to thank the wonderful Dr. Guergues Ajaralu for producing these sessions. And to Kevin Bathman, who was the producer of the project. Okay, well, yes, come and do some exchanges. Come and let's collaborate more. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will say good night or good day, depending on whatever time zone that you are. And keep your eyes out for the next session, because I'm sure Diversity Arts will be onto the next one. So thank you very much, and appreciate you sharing your space and time with us. Thank you so much.